Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful winter day in Colorado. And today I'm going to talk about the 8th of the Ox-Herding Pictures, which has several translations. One is the person and the ox both forgotten. And last week the ox was forgotten, but the person still remained. But here the person is forgotten too. Or transcending the ox and the person, or the herds person. And one translation I saw was complete oblivion of the ox and the herdsman. So I didn't bring the picture in. I don't know, maybe Corin went to get it. Yeah, I was just going to tell you that it's just an anso, which is a circle. Which represents transcending the ox and the person. So the preface to this picture says, all worldly desires have fallen away, and at the same time, the meaning of holiness has become completely empty. So don't linger where the Buddha dwells, and go quickly past the place where no Buddha dwells. If a person is no longer attached to either, what is innermost in him or her can no longer be seen into, not even by one who has 1,000 eyes. And then it says, holiness to which birds consecrate flowers is such a disgrace. Okay. So the nature of Zen, as described by Bodhidharma, is not to rely on words. And it's a transmission outside the teachings to point directly to one's heart and to see into one's own original nature and become Buddha. And that's the state that describes this stage, which is the complete oblivion of both the ox and the herdsman, which is the ox being one's true self, or Buddha nature, and oneself, just letting it all go. And so this transmission outside the teaching started with Mahakashapa's smile when Shakyamuni Buddha held up a flower. And some of you know that. And that's when the Buddha was supposed to be giving a Dharma talk, and he held up a flower, and Mahakasapa smiled, and he said, and the Buddha said that he has the incomparable Dharma, which transcends words, and now he hands it to Mahakasapa. So that was the first transmission outside the teaching. And then there were 28 Indian ancestors and up to Bodhidharma, and then in China was handed down to the 6th ancestor, Wei Nang, and from him 5 different schools of Zen arose, and they were the Rinzai and the Soto, which we're familiar with, and then there was the Uman and the Ikkyo and the Hogen sects, and they all died out. And actually, I'll tell the story sometime, but the Soto sect kind of took a little jog. It wasn't continuous, but only the Rinzai was continuous from then to today. So the particular nature of Zen, which lies outside Buddhist doctrine and doesn't depend upon intellectual understanding or learning, And it depends on the detachment of the whole life. And at the same time, on the detached life, in completely forgetting oneself and one's true nature. So, in other words, just letting go of everything is hard to imagine. And everything just drops away. And we're functioning totally out of complete identification with everything. And so that gives rise to compassion. And so when someone reaches a state, the mirror of one's heart shines clearly. One's nature is wide and open. And he leaves air and does not attach himself to truth. He dwells neither in error nor awakening. He's neither worldly nor holy. And all worldly desires fall away, and at the same time, the meaningless of holiness is empty, without residue. So the pupil experiences absolute notness, since self and other have come to nothing. And genuine Zen experience consists exclusively in this forgetting the ox and the self. So this complete, it's called notness here, or maybe this reminds me of a story when I used to be close friends with Joko Beck. We would take walks during lunch time. We both worked at the same university, and she was working on Joshu's moo. Does a dog have Buddha nature? And Joshu said moo, which means not. And we walked around and she was talking about it. She says, it's not this, it's not that, it's not this, it's not that, it's not this. So what is that? It's not. Whatever you say, it's not that. So this notness, if I can say it, is the original place from which everything is born. All thinking and all knowing. If you're even willing to speak of a place, which is provisional, and even if we want to characterize it as unbornness or nirvana or truth, and never really, that doesn't hit it. As soon as you say something, then it's constrained. So it lies beyond all terminology and expression. And Master Toksan once said, if you can say it, you'll get 60 blows. And if you can't say it, you'll get 60 blows. So he was a vigorous teacher, always yielded his stick. That was his teaching. So there's a commentary on this stage, and it says, the student first shattered the realm of worldly desires and passions, and then broke into the realm of holiness, which is the seventh stage. And this is the eighth stage. So he's unburdened of the realm of holiness at this stage. He's neither holy nor worldly. He's able to inherit the wisdom life of the Buddhas and masters for the first time. He is, in quotes, above all Buddhas and masters. He has become a Zen pupil who has passed through the one great matter. And all worldly passions finally fall away, and the meaning of holiness empties itself completely. So the place where the Buddha dwells is a world of difference in which all beings persist. That's the world of the relative. And the caution is that the herdsperson should not dwell there. The place in which no Buddha lives is a realm of non-difference, or the absolute, in which no treasure or beings are, in which no nature or beings are treasured. And in the Song of the Experience of the Way by Master Yung Chi, he says, even the true is not treasured. In the primordial, error is empty. When being and not being are dropped together, even the not empty, which is the true, empties itself. So that's what he said. Okay. Ultimately, there's nothing relative that would be recognized as relative, and nothing absolute that would be valued as such. Through the relative, there's the absolute, and through the absolute, there's the relative. So he says not to mistake them. In the complete oblivion of the ox and the herdsman, both the relative and the absolute are removed. They're just temporary expedients. So this is kind of a difficult stage to understand and maybe to comprehend and to realize. But we chant the trust and heart mind of the third ancestor in China in the morning here in the Zendo sometimes. And we've chanted it during Shishin here too. And it says, abide not in duality. Refrain from all pursuit of it. If there's a trace of right and wrong, true mind is lost, confused, distraught. From one mind comes duality, but cling not even to this one. When this one mind rests undisturbed, then nothing in the world offends. There's so much, going on in the world right now that can cause us to be ungrounded or unsettled. All of the wars and all of the political activity and all of the lies that we're subjected to every day. But if we reach this state of rest, then none of this offends us. And there's that quotation about the birds who concentrate flowers is from the following. The Master Nuitu, who's the spiritual heir of the fourth ancestor, once sat in a stone cave near the UGC temple. And he was training us very assiduously, very vigorously. And many birds came and consecrated flowers to him to praise his unusual virtue. And later, when he had gained the nature of Zen from his teacher, they no longer brought him any flowers. So the person to whom the birds consecrate flowers is still attached to holiness, but when he let go of that, then the birds went and consecrated somebody else who was attached to holiness and left him. So if somebody is really experienced, truly experienced the fact, what would his or her life look like? And they use that as an example of the birds. When they stopped, he was a real person. So as long as people extol you as a great person of high rank, you're not real. A person of true enlightenment doesn't look great at all. And these birds failed to spot Hoyu Zenji because he turned invisible to them. And he became someone who they didn't recognize. Yeah. I've mentioned this before, but I had a student who told me that he really liked studying with me because I'm not charismatic. And I thought that was a wonderful compliment. So there's a poem also about this case. It goes like this: whip and rain, like the rain, like the rope that he holds. The ox and herdsman have completely vanished without trace. In the vast blue sky, words can never suffice to measure him. Only when a person has succeeded in getting to the place can he match the old masters. Oops, I skipped a line. Yeah. In the vast blue sky, words can never suffice to measure him. How can snow survive in the red flame of a burning fire? Only when a person has succeeded in getting to this place can he match the old masters. So whip and rain, ox and herdsmen have completely vanished without trace. So in this state, there's no dust even. And in this great ocean, there's no waves. And all koans and sutras are left behind without residue. And wisdom and nirvana have also have dropped by the side. And Master Rinzai called this robbing of the person and the object. Robbing, in other words, is stolen away. So all of these distinctions we make between the Buddha and ordinary people, between the past and the future, have all disappeared. It's become clear and transparent everywhere. So at the moment when oneself and the koan you're working on have become one, there's no longer a self or a koan. There's not having become. And one, there hasn't become one anymore. And thinking can never measure this region. So in the next line, in the vast blue sky, words never suffice to measure him or her. So the character for the vast blue sky are similar to the characters for emptiness. So the vast blue sky expresses the true fact of emptiness, the world of the true self. And since it's empty, there's no means to communicate it. Yet, to tell you the truth, it was communicated from the very beginning as empty. So somehow we have to say something. But as I mentioned before, it's an experience that we're talking about. And so when you describe it an experience, that's not the experience itself. We use a lot of metaphors, like the menu isn't the meal, Um, but if somebody else hasn't had the experience, how do you communicate it? Yeah. Yeah. And when people have had similar experiences, they can talk about it. You know, like teaching somebody how to ride a bike, for example. I taught all my kids how to ride a bike, and you know, it's not something you can just say, you know, write down on a piece of paper, here's what you go do it. They actually have to get on the bike and feel it with their whole body, you know. And some of it's really counterintuitive, you know. I've talked about this before because I realized this when I was teaching my oldest kids how to drive. They got a lot of skinned knees before I figured it out. When you're riding a bike and you start tipping to the right, what the body intuitively wants to do is turn the handlebar to the left. And when you do that, you line up the front wheel perfectly to fall over. Yeah. And so that's what kids want to do when they're first riding. I say, no, when you're falling, you have to turn into the fall. You have to, if you're falling to the right, you turn the handlebars to the right, and then that straightens you up, and then you can go back the other way. And I always taught them on grass rather than asphalt, because but I had my youngest kids picked it up really fast. I would just start with them in a grass, gentle slope, and just tell them to put their legs out and don't pedal, and then just try and balance the thing as it goes down, you know, turning and feeling. And then eventually you feel it with your whole body. You know, you don't even think about it. Your body, you've learned how to do it. And I'm sure skiing is like that, you know, where you think anything you need to, or snowboarding, or where you need to have your balance, you know, you have to feel it with your whole body. And Zazen is like that too. You have to feel it with your whole body. You know, feel when your mind is starting to fall out of balance. Don't turn your wheel to the right when you're falling to the right. And don't turn it to the left when you're falling to the left. Yeah. Just find that balance and find that feeling. So the next line says, how can snow survive in the red flame of a burning fire? So this complete oblivion of the ox and the herdsman is a gate on the way of ascending. It's the 8th stage. Remember, there's 2 more stages after this. So the great fire glows in which everything's burned up. So if you meet the Buddha's burned up. If you meet the masters, they're burned up, good and bad, right and wrong. Wisdom and error all pass away without residue, like snow in the flame. Neither snow nor discriminating thoughts can survive the flames of emptiness. My first teacher was Shishin Roshi, who I met when I was living in London. And he used to say that if your zazen was strong, you could sit in the snow, and that your hara was like an oven that radiates heat, and it wouldn't be a problem. And whatever goes into the hara just is consumed. Any thought you have, any projection, any opinion, any ideas, just the fire of your zazen just burns it up without residue. So there's an anecdote of Master Chang Bi. He visited the tomb of the 6th ancestor, and afterwards he went to see Master Sekito Kisen, and the latter asked him, where have you come from? And he said, from Lingnam. And he says, has your training there been complete? He said, a long time ago, but it lacks I. And Sekito said, do you need an I so as to put it in? And he asked for instructions, and he said, he was sitting cross-legged, and he stretched his legs out flat. And Chungbi bowed low, and Sekito asked him, you bow, what have you seen? And he says, according to my insight, it's like snow in a red-hot hearth. So when Sekito stretched out his legs, what was he teaching? He was sitting probably in half lotus or full lotus, and he stretched out his legs. Don't hold on anywhere. Burn up everything. So the last line says, only when a person has succeeded in getting to this place can he match the old masters. So what is this place? This place is no place. I like that expression. There's no place like home. Let's look at it in other words. There's no place like home. Home is no place. But well, when we think about it, there's no place like home. That means that home is the best place. But home is no place, according at least to our tradition. Then it's the nature of Zen. And that's the nature of Zen, is to let go of any attachment to self. And there's another poem about the stage, which I'll present. It says, shame. Previously, I wanted to save the world. What a surprise. There's no longer a world to save. Words cannot express how things are with the herdsman in this realm. Predecessor, successor, here there's neither. Answer me. Who can inherit this truth? Who will pass it on? So up to now, I wanted to save all worldly beings and took the care of training on myself, using many sutras and koans. Having managed to get here, I look back at myself, and to my great astonishment, all beings have already been completely Buddha since the beginning. See, but the problem is that we don't all realize it. Yeah. So that's the Bodhisattva vow. Like he says, there's no one to save. But the Bodhisattva vow is to liberate everybody. So who are we liberating? See? But there's no one to save, only if we see that clearly. Because everybody's already the Buddha. But don't fall into a trap of thinking I'm the Buddha, and so everything I do is the action of a Buddha. No. We have to pay attention, to our precepts, to our guideposts, how to really function without attaching to the self or to others, but at the same time liberating the self and others. It seems like a paradox, but that's only because of our logical way of thinking. Yeah, we built this complex society based on 1 and 0. Everything is either 1 or 0. That's how a computer works. It just depends on 1 and 0, and then you can, and we have all of these TVs and computers and phones and cars and everything. Well, it's useful up to a point. I had a student who said humans are just binary figs. I said, is that right? What if we let go of that? Is that binary number system going to help us when our heart was torn open by all of the suffering in the world and all of our own suffering? So everybody's a Buddha, but we have to realize it, and that's what these ox-herding pictures are about. But in this 8th stage, there's nothing that comes and nothing that goes. There's no birth and no death, and no endless succession of thoughts. See, that's what we chant in the Heart Sutra too. So the beginningless past and the infinite future are enclosed in the now, which fills the whole cosmos beyond space and time. So in this stage, Shakyamuni Buddha was never born and Bodhidharma never came to China. And complete directness reigns. Everything is just totally direct and present. So it can't be transmitted, and yet it must be transmitted. So Kashyapa smiled when Shakyamuni held up the flower. So did handing down and inheriting take place? Did not any inheriting and handing down take place? This is how it stands with the transmission of non-transmission. So maybe you know the story of Ananda, who was the Buddha's attendant, and then when the Buddha died, he became the attendant of Kashyapa, who was the first successor of the Buddha. And he asked Kashyapa, did Shakyamuni hand down a truth to you in addition to giving you the patriarchal robe and bowl? And Kashyapa called out, Ananda, and when he answered, yes, master, he said, pull down the flagpole of the front gate. And the flagpole represents a Dharma combat. And he said, the Dharma combat's over. What's hidden? I call and you answer. Is there anything mysterious about that? And Ananda was suddenly awakened, and that's another example of the transmission of non-transmission. There's a wonderful expression which comes out of one of the cases in the Mumonkan, where one of the teacher was talking with a student, and the student was really sharp and gave all of the proper answers, and the teacher said, I thought I had transcended against you, but I see you've transcended against me, which is a kind of a way of saying that we have the same mind. In other words, I thought that I had stolen everything away, but I see you've stolen everything away too. So did he transmit anything? No. I think he just recognized that you have the same experience as I do. You see things the way I do. I didn't give you a thing. In fact, that's what the Buddha said. He said, I have not gained a single thing in all of my years of practice and teaching, but I let go of many things. So he's just saying what it says here too, that there's no world to be saved because each one of us is the Buddha. We just have to reveal it And the way to reveal that is to keep letting go of things that we're holding on to, that are preventing us from seeing it. It's like the clouds obscuring the sun. The clouds have to be drifted away in order for the sun to shine through, but the sun's always shining, whether there's clouds there or not. It's like our Buddha nature is always shining, whether we're attached to our discriminating thoughts or not. So that's the point of the practice and of this stage, is to, whenever we thought we've let go of everything, then we have to let go of more. There's a koan that says, when you've shot all of your arrows and your quiver is completely empty, then you have to shoot with all your might. Okay. I'll end there. See if any of you have any comments or questions.